we've been talking in this whole program about being connected, and we were taking a few shots at Cheryl with her cell phone. I have to confess that I have a phone as well. It's right here in my pocket, but it is turned off as I'm chatting with you. But the reason I love a phone is that it helps me to stay connected, not just with my wife, but with my 5 daughters. And that's kind of when I don't want to turn my phone off. I want to be in touch with them. But even more, we want to be connected. Staying connected is such an important thing, and especially with our Heavenly Father. This day, as we look in Philippians chapter 1, verses 3 and 4, I have discovered a principle that we can be up. As we're doing this series called Up, prayer is what keeps me up. Prayer is what gives me perspective. Prayer is what reminds me that God is walking with me. And the Apostle Paul, he's the one that teaches this principle. And he says, I thank my God every time I remember you in all my prayers. For all of you, I always pray with joy. Let's just unpack that for a few moments, because I am convinced that prayed up people are the ones that stay up. We go through a lot of stuff, but when I stay on my knees, when I'm praying, when I'm talking to God, that transforms things. Paul says, I thank my God every time I remember you. So he's talking about prayer there. And then he says, in all my prayers for you, I always pray with joy. So something about Paul's prayer life is that it was regular. Let me encourage you to pray regularly, not just when you feel like it or once a month or once a week, but at a daily time. Find a time. I find for me the most important thing is when I roll out of bed, I need to say, God, I got to commit this day to you. I need you. And there are other times of consistency where I build prayer into my life through the day. I remember the story in the Old Testament of Daniel in the Old Testament. He gets down on his knees and he prayed 3 times a day. We live in a pretty casual age, don't we? But there's something to be said if you're able to get down on your knees. Somehow it just reminds me that I'm in the presence of the King of Kings. And the other reality is that when I'm on my knees, they don't shake, because there's so many things that can terrify us. There's so many things that can steal away joy and create fear in our heart. But Paul says something else. He says, I pray with joy. He prays with joy because these people have made such an impact in his life. But when you pray with joy, it really is the prayer of faith. Later on in the letter, Paul would write in Philippians 4, verse 6, don't be anxious about anything, but in everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving, present your requests to God. Let me unpack that one word, anxious. Did it slip by as I was going there? Because, you know, culturally it seems that we are all nervous wrecks. And if anything leads to stress and many of the disorders, it is anxiety. As I read articles about that, as I know what I've had to deal with what you're dealing with. God says we can pray with joy because our confidence is in Him, that He's hearing our prayer, that He's answering our prayer. Matter of fact, over in 1 John 5, verse 14, I wrote down a verse that says, this is the confidence that we have in approaching God, that if we ask anything in His name, He hears us, anything. Now, sometimes the requests, the answers that God gives me to my requests are not what I want, but I know that He hears me, and I've learned that I can trust Him as I walk through the day-to-day journey. Prayed up people are the ones that stay up. We talk a lot about prayer on 100 Huntley Street. There are prayer lines that are open, people that you can call right now as you see that number going across the bottom of your screen. We want to pray with you.